Over the next 20 minutes, I'm going to provide everything you need to know about the Article 5 Convention of States project. The problem, the solution, how it works, our strategy, and finally, how to get involved. If you're unfamiliar with this idea and this movement, don't worry. I was sitting right where you are not too long ago, and hopefully by the end of our time together, you'll have a good grasp of the basics. The Convention of States project is designed to address the three biggest problems we see in Washington, D.C. the debt and spending crisis, the overreach of the federal government, and the negative effects of career politicians. First, the debt and spending crisis. Here's the most important fact about our spending problem. Party doesn't matter. Democrats and Republicans both spent far beyond our means, and it's jeopardizing the future of our children and our grandchildren. But we'll feel the effects of this irresponsible spending even before our grandchildren are saddled with the national debt. According to expert analysis, the Medicare fund will be depleted by 2026, and Social Security will be gone by 2034. The second problem is government overreach. There are many ways that Washington abuses its power, but one of the most flagrant happens every day in federal bureaucracies. Most people don't realize that bureaucrats are not elected, and yet they are responsible for the vast majority of the laws and regulations under which we live. Here's the problem. Article 1 of the Constitution says that all legislative power is vested in Congress. I think this video does a great job illustrating how far we've departed from that idea. Laws and regulations continue to pile up year after year. And the federal bureaucracy isn't the only branch that creates laws out of thin air. The Supreme Court does it too, as Mike Ferris explains in this next video.
People like us, people that are frustrated with Washington, D.C., often say, well, they don't follow the Constitution anyway. Not true. They follow the wrong one. They're following the Constitution as interpreted by the Supreme Court, rather than the Constitution as written.
This, taking out of my pocket, is a pocket constitution. 4,000 words in the original document, 4,400 words. If you count the amendments, we're talking about 7,000 words. But here is the Constitution in force today. This is 3,000 pages of Supreme Court rulings showing what every ruling has done to the original words. This isn't going to get any smaller. In fact, every time they publish this document, they leave a bunch of blank pages at the back for additional rulings that they know are coming. Every page in this document means a grant of power to the federal government. Understand that this is the Constitution in operation today, and unless we change it, unless we make its wording crystal clear, we're going to continue to operate under this document forever and ever until the whole house of cards comes falling down.
Our founders never wanted anyone to make a career out of public service. But look how long these men and women from both sides of the aisles have been in Washington. You might say, what's wrong with that? Their constituents elect them. Why shouldn't they continue serving? The problem is that the longer someone stays in D.C., the more they smell like the swamp. The more they become tied to the bureaucracies and special interests, the less they're willing to stick their neck out for the good of their constituents, or more importantly, the good of the country. And as you can see, the problem is getting worse. And why shouldn't it? Our federal officials, whether we're talking about bureaucrats, the Supreme Court, or Congress people, don't have any incentive to change the status quo. They're perfectly happy to continue acquiring more power, wealth, and influence as long as we, the people, will let them. This is one of our core beliefs at the Convention of States project. The federal government will never fix itself. They'll never stop spending, abusing their power, or seeking re-election. Fortunately, the founders predicted that this would happen. That's why they included the Convention of States option in Article 5 of the Constitution.
The 15th of September, 2 days before they signed the document, the end of 4 long, hot months in Philadelphia, they were ready to go home. But George Mason noticed that Article 5 only had a single method for amending the Constitution. He said, wait a minute, what if Congress becomes an obstacle?
It was given to us by George Mason, who said, look at guys, someday this government's going to abuse its power, and there won't be anything for you ever to ratify if it's counting on Congress to reduce the power of the federal government. So we need to give the states the ability to reduce the power of the federal government.
As that video explains, the founders wrote Article 5 for one specific reason, so that the states could check federal power. They knew that without the Convention of States option, a corrupt, powerful federal government would never fix itself. Which brings us to the actual text of Article 5. Here's what it says. The Congress, whenever 2/3 of both houses shall deem it necessary, shall propose amendments to this Constitution, or, on the application of the legislatures for 2/3 of the several states, shall call a convention for proposing amendments, which, in either case, shall be valid to all intents and purposes as part of this Constitution. When ratified by the legislatures of 3/4 of the several states, or by conventions in 3/4 thereof, as the one or the other mode of ratification may be proposed by the Congress. Our plan is simple. We want to use Article 5 as the founders intended. We believe the federal government has gone off the rails, and we want to encourage the states to use their power under Article 5 to get our nation back on track. Like the colonists during the War for Independence, our desire isn't to scrap everything and start something brand new. Instead, we want to get back to our founding principles, and we believe the best, most effective way to do that is to call a convention of states. Fortunately, the founders predicted this would happen. That's why they included the Convention of States option in Article 5 of the Constitution. First, citizens asked their state legislatures to pass a resolution calling for an Article 5 Convention of States. Millions of patriots all across the country have done this by signing the Convention of States petition, and thousands more have called, emailed, and met with their state representatives. Next, the Convention of States resolution follows the same process as any other resolution. It must pass committees in both chambers and finally pass the full chamber in the House and the Senate. Once 34 states pass identical resolutions calling for a Convention of States, Congress is obligated under Article 5 to name a time and place for the convention. The state legislatures decide how to select delegates to the convention, but no matter how many delegates they send, each state gets only one vote. At the convention, delegates propose, debate, and vote on amendments. We'll get into the details of this in a minute, but for now it's important to know that all amendments proposed must be limited to the language in the Convention of States resolution. Any off-topic amendments will be considered out of order. Amendment proposals are passed when a simple majority of the state delegations vote for them. Next, the amendment proposals that pass out of the convention are sent back to the states for ratification. 38 states must vote yes for any amendment proposal to become part of the Constitution. Again, this is a very high bar, and it all but ensures that no bad amendments will end up in our founding document. You can think of it like this. It only takes one legislative chamber in 13 states to keep any amendment from moving forward. I don't know about you, but I can easily think of 13 states that would kill any amendment limiting freedom or drastically restructuring our system of government. Finally, once ratified by 38 states, the amendment becomes part of the Constitution. Our strategy consists of two main arenas, the state legislatures and the grassroots. On the legislative side, we're seeking to pass the Convention of States resolution in at least 34 states. We've already passed it in 19 states, which means we are already halfway there. Our resolution calls for amendments in three distinct categories that limit the power and jurisdiction of the federal government, impose fiscal restraints on Congress, and mandate term limits for federal officials. Remember, like I said before, when the states call for a convention of states under this resolution, they can only propose amendments that fall into one of these three categories. The Convention of States project doesn't endorse any particular amendments. Rather, we want the states to debate and propose specific amendment language under one of these three broad topics. Here's where you come in. Along with lobbying in state legislatures, we're seeking to build the nation's largest grassroots army. And as you can see, we're well on our way. We have volunteer teams with leadership structures in every state. Over 5 million volunteers and supporters in local leadership, what we call district captains, in over 1,700 state house districts. Thanks in large part to the grassroots army, the momentum for the Convention of States movement is building all across the country. The green states represent where we've already passed our resolution. There are 19 so far. We've also conducted polling in several states that have yet to pass our resolution. In those states, over 60% of voters say they would support their state calling for a convention of states. Finally, one of the most exciting aspects of the Article 5 movement is that it enjoys bipartisan support. Over half of Democrats and 75% of Republicans say they would back a convention of states to limit the power and jurisdiction of the federal government. Plus, some of the nation's most prominent thinkers and leaders have taken note of the growing Convention of States movement. In conclusion, if you'd like to get involved, here are 3 of the best ways. We have additional volunteer and leadership positions available, and if you're interested in other opportunities, please feel free to visit our website at www.conventionofstates.com or contact me directly. But these are the 3 ways you can be most helpful to our growing movement. First, you can simply sign the official Convention of States petition at conventionofstates.com. When you sign the petition and provide your full address, we'll automatically send a copy of the petition to your state legislators. This is a great way, easy way, to let your representatives know you support the Convention of States resolution in your state legislature. Next, you can volunteer to be a district captain in your local community. Here's a brief video explaining that position.
All of us at the Convention of States Project truly believe freedom is worth fighting for. That's why we are executing a strategy that uses the Constitution to restore America. We believe the key to our success is creating and mobilizing a grassroots army at the state level. And the most critical member of this grassroots army is the district captain. We need a district captain in each of the 5,000 state house districts nationwide. As a district captain, you're on the front line in the fight for liberty. You'll be connecting Convention of States supporters in your local area, partnering with your state director to organize local town halls, meetings, and petition drives, and mobilizing local activists to have their voices heard at your state legislature. We will give you all the tools you will need and proudly stand shoulder to shoulder with you as we recruit, train, mobilize, and engage the largest grassroots army in the history of the United States. So be a part of the movement that refuses to let liberty die and stands up for our children and their future. Welcome aboard.
This last way to get involved is less important than the other 2, but I still wanted to mention it. We rely heavily on our amazing volunteers, but like any organization, the Convention of States Project also relies on our generous donors to keep up the fight for liberty. If you'd like to contribute, you can do so at our conventionofstates.com/donate to make your donations. That's it. Thank you so much for your time and attention today, and I'll be happy to answer any other questions you might have. There's never been a more important time in our history to enact the power that our Constitution gives we the people, the power to fix our country.